Historic houses across Britain report sightings of ghosts, and often you feel an atmosphere, so a sense of those who have lived there before. In this very special episode, I'll be hearing some rather spooky tales of ghostly activity. When I married into the British aristocracy, it was the start of a wonderfully exciting journey. But it was also a little daunting. I became a Viscountess, and for an American girl from a small town outside Chicago, that was quite a shock.
I live with my husband Luke, heir to the Earl of Sandwich, and our family at Mapperton House in Dorset.
Living in a place like this is a joy, but also a challenge. And every day we're aware that we're preserving a very special part of Britain's heritage. Mapperton has opened up an extraordinary new world for me, and I can't wait to share it with you all.
So if you love castles and manors and stately homes as much as I do, please join this American Viscountess as I journey into the British countryside in search of some of Britain's finest historic houses.
Welcome to Mapperton, where today we're in the Tudor wing of the house, and I do think that every historic home must have at least one ghost. And certainly here at Mapperton, there are some rooms where guests have said that they have felt or seen something. I haven't yet, but that's what I've been told. Upstairs in the Tudor bedroom, it's said that there is a gray lady who apparently does not allow you to enter without asking for permission first. So many of the historic houses that I visited also have haunting stories to tell. Berkeley Castle in Gloucestershire has been the home to the Berkeley family for nearly 900 years. But within its walls, a brutal reality of English history was played out. In 1327, King Edward II was murdered. So I asked Mrs. Berkeley if she has ever encountered any house ghosts over the 50 years that she has lived in the castle.
On two occasions. One, I was up in the top of the keep there, making up bed for the, we had the hump ball, have the hump ball here, and the band were going to stay. And I was making this bed, and all of a sudden I heard this footfall, and they had to come down stone steps. And I thought, well, it's not the dogs, because they never like coming down.
Right.
And I sort of half turned, and all of a sudden there was someone standing behind me. And you know when someone is close to you, don't you?
You can feel.
And yes, and it was male. And I suddenly felt all the hairs at the back of my neck going up. I've never had that happen. And I always wondered what people were talking about when they said the hair set up in the back of your neck. And so I turned the opposite way to him, because he was on my right, and rushed out of the room. I absolutely just had time to switch the light off, because it was about 7:30 in the evening, and I had all these flight of stairs upstairs and across and down to here, and I absolutely rigid. It really, you know, it was really quite something.
Yes. Well, you could feel that energy.
I must have.
You must.
It was a man,
Yes.
you know.
Yes.
I didn't at the time think it might have been the king, say,
Right.
although I wouldn't
Edward
think it was
II,
better
yeah.
the second. Otherwise, one might have been more polite, you know. But anyway, no, that was quite a shock. And another time, I went out. One of the dogs wanted to go out, and as they do in the middle of the night or the early morning. Actually, it was about 6:30. And I brought it down, and I let it out into the inner bailey. And I suddenly saw movement opposite, and there was two women sitting there. I thought, how peculiar, who's this come in now? And anyway, husband John was coming back in. He took the dogs. He got downstairs before me, was really the answer.
Right.
So he'd bring them back in. And he said, "Good God, what's wrong with you? You look as if you've seen a ghost." I thought, of course, that's what I've done. These two women, who were actually fairly modern, they were sort of 1900s, I suppose.
Right,
but-
right.
And I think the spirits, after all, this is quite old, and spirits are under the floorboards or wherever you like, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
I mean, they find a skeleton under the great hall floor when that had to be lifted, the stone.
Oh,
And so I suppose if you died in those very early days, they'd just put you under the rubble,
right.
wouldn't they?
Yes.
They didn't bother with burial.
With burials, no. These very ancient buildings really do absorb their histories, and Athelhampton House here in Dorset is no exception. I met up with owner Giles Keating to hear more about Athelhampton's ghostly past.
There are quite a few ghosts here.
Quite a few.
I mean, or so they say, and I mean, one or two people who I know have had quite a number of experiences. But I'm going to tell you perhaps one particular story, if I may, which is a very old story, actually. And this is a story, there was a young woman who lived here, and possibly in Tudor times, 500 years ago, and she had a pet ape, and people in those days did have apes as pets.
Right.
And who I think she loved very much, and the ape loved her.
Right.
And this young woman obviously also had a human sweetheart, and unfortunately things did not go well in that relationship, and she became completely disillusioned. And she decided that she really just, all she wanted to do was to die, very sad.
Right. She was heartbroken and
was
heartsick.
Heartbroken.
Right.
Yep. And so she decided that she was just going to go into one of the many secret passages at Athelhampton and just die.
Oh my goodness.
And so I'm afraid she did that, but the ape, who was so loyal to her, the ape followed her. And I mean, I think we can have a look here. Yes, went in behind the panelling with her.
No. No!
So.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. They went in here. Wait, I'm gonna see if I just feel something here. It does feel heavier.
Do you feel that? Do you feel that?
Oh my goodness. Giles, this is creepy. This is unbelievable. This is unbelievable. We're in this secret. So she went in here with the ape, and the ape followed her.
Yes, and what people say is that, I mean, sadly they both died there.
No.
And the ape is now, people say, still walks the house, and you can actually see, that's what they say, I've not seen it,
right,
disappear through the panelling when people are there and they see that, yeah.
Oh my goodness, so the ape could be here.
Could be.
Somewhere. It did feel a bit heavy, everybody. I have to say. It's, right. Do you go in this little area very often?
No, this is also a very useful area. Yeah,
right,
yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Okay, wow. Honestly, it was really creepy in that hidden space. The story of the girl and the ape captured Giles' imagination, and when we were exploring the upper floors, he explained more. Oh my goodness. Giles, this is astonishing.
It's lovely,
It's-
isn't it?
oh.
Yeah.
It is so beautiful. Now, I'm guessing it's a library.
Indeed,
Right.
right. Yeah, this is the library. Yeah, yeah.
Brilliant, but I do spot something out of my corner of my eye. You're an author.
That is correct. That is correct. Yeah, yeah.
Giles?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Okay, you must explain to our viewers, well, this is Athelhampton here.
Yes,
And
yes.
it's Anne of Athelhampton and the Riddle of the Apes. Can you explain to everybody, and do I get a signed copy? I hope
We
so.
can let you have, of course. That'll be a yes.
Wonderful. Explain to me a little bit about the inspiration to this and this book. It's fiction?
It is fiction, but it's absolutely based on a lot of documentary evidence of what actually happened.
Right.
And Anne of Athelhampton, she is the youngest of the 4 Martin daughters who lived here in the middle of the Elizabethan period.
Okay.
Around about 1580, 1585, yes.
Right.
And,
Right.
yes.
And can you give us a little bit about sort of, the context of this book?
So a couple of things. The ape, of course, is her pet. She has a pet ape. So we know where the inspiration came from that,
Right,
some of the
right.
stories in the house. And the storyline is really about a bit of something that's going on with her cousin, who is actually the young Sir John Tregonwell. They actually have quite a feud, this young Sir John, with Anne's whole family. And that's documented, that's history.
Okay, right,
And
right.
so the book kind of picks up on that and just kind of develops where that might have led. And poor Anne is actually really gets into quite a difficult corner.
Okay.
But anyway, well, you have to read the book.
Well,
and see.
I'm just going to quickly just read here, just the back, because I was just reading it while you were telling me, and it's lovely because I see the words witchcraft, riddle, secrets, passageways. It says, why has Anne been given a pet ape, Endy, as a 12th birthday gift from her grasping cousin, young John? Can he solve the riddle before Anne and use it to accuse their grandmother, the Lady Elizabeth, of witchcraft and of harboring a priest? Helped by Endy, the ape, and her friends Lizzie and Robert, Anne searches the passageways and walls of her family home, Athelhampton, to reveal their secrets and solve the riddle, only to discover that she herself is young John's target and that her struggle against him will lead her into mortal danger.
That's right. Yup. Well, and this is just the first of a trilogy, actually. Yes. So the next volume, which is Anne of Athelhampton and the Queen's Pearls, is pretty well finished.
Fantastic.
Coming out over the next few months, and then the third volume is in process.
Oh my goodness. Well, that is very exciting. And if you want to purchase a copy of Giles' book, the details are down below, athelhampton.com. And when you purchase, if you mention Julie Montague, Giles will also sign the book for you as well. It's been said that Athelhampton is one of the most haunted houses in all of England, with tales of a hooded priest walking through the Great Hall, a bride in the gardens, and reports of doors slamming and lights switching themselves off. Owen Davies, the estate manager, had even more stories to tell.
This is one that is a ghost who is often seen by our visitors, and we see quite a lot of visitors every year, and a lot of them mention that they've seen a lady stood in this room. And until recently, this room was completely out of bounds. It had a gate at the door that you couldn't come in. So people used to come down and say, how do you get in there? I've seen a woman in there. A little bit scary. But we did some research and we know exactly who it is. It's a lady called Susanna Long.
Right.
And she is the wife, it's 1680 is the year, and she is the wife of James Long. He is the owner of Athelhampton. And he's not a good guy. He's a womanizer, he's a drunkard, he's a gambler.
Right.
And one day he's off in Southampton and he gambles away the family fortune. Not a good way to be. A few weeks pass and eventually the woman that he owes all the money to takes the family to court, and the sheriffs come to Puddletown.
Right.
They've come to sequester the whole estate to pay off the debt. They arrive in Puddletown on one rainy evening, and they're in the local tavern, and they're having a glass of beer with the locals. And the locals start to just wind them up a little bit of teasing, and they tell them how very well armed and defended Athelhampton is. Pistols and muskets on the table in the Great Hall. But it's all just a little bit of a story, just to wind them up a little bit. So the next day the sheriffs come to Athelhampton. They're a little bit apprehensive, and they pound on the front door. But James Long has another character. He's also a total coward, and he hides in a cupboard in the depths of the house, and he leaves his wife to deal with the sheriffs. Now, she's not daft. She doesn't go downstairs and open the door. Instead, she shouts at them from what would have been her bedchamber window, this window here, and you can just see the porch of the house below.
Right.
And she shouts at them and says, you know, go away, my husband isn't here, he's abroad. It's a complete lie. He's in the cupboard. The sheriffs, you know, they keep trying to break in, but they can't get in, so they go away. The next day they come back and they have another go, pounding on the door, and Susanna is shouting and shouting and shouting.
Go away.
You know, you're not coming in here, my husband is away, you'll have to wait till he comes back. He's probably still hiding in the cupboard. So they go. They know they're not going to get anywhere. Susanna is so, you know, the adrenaline is rushing, the heart is beating. She's so affected by this that when she goes to sleep that night, she supposedly dies in her sleep. And this is all recorded in her brother's diary. He makes a record of this, and he records this in his diary, and Susanna is dead.
No.
So we wonder if it's Susanna that we see. But the story has a nasty little twist, because James Long, we know he's not the nicest of guys, but he goes to Southampton. Within a couple of weeks, he's off to Southampton again, and he finds the lady that he owes all the money to, Mary Keighley, and he marries her. And
What?
brings her back to Athelhampton. Susanna's bed is barely cold, and he's got a new bride, and he installs her in the house.
No. So the ghost here is Susanna.
Absolutely. Now, Mary has a pretty good effect on James. He mends many of his ways, but he never gives up the gambling. And actually, he himself dies a few years later in debtor's prison. He owes more money. So Mary Keighley is living here in Susanna's house. So no wonder Susanna is a little bit annoyed and haunts this room to this day.
To this day. And visitors have seen this?
Visitors see it. I reckon probably 1 in 200 people spot this lady.
And they come up to you?
And they do. They come up to us and say, who's the lady? Who's the lady in the library? Now, of course, today it is a library, but back in James Long's time, this was the Lord of the Manor's bedchamber and the Mistress of the Manor's bedchamber.
Oh my gosh. That is spooky. 1680.
1680.
She's still here.
And she's still here.
I believe that stuff, especially if you have 1 in every 200.
Absolutely, yeah. No, a lot of people see her.
Oh my, I'm kind of like looking for her around.
Yeah, she'll pop up.
She's going to appear.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the scariest ghost story I've heard here. That is a scary one. That is a scary one. I feel it.
Yeah.
I feel it. I feel like I need to get out of here now.
I think she's got her eye on us.
Oh. There really was a feeling in that room. What a story. But then Owen told a haunting tale in a room that felt like literally heavy with chills. Okay, Owen, where have you taken me?
Well, I brought you into one of the chilliest rooms in the house.
That crib.
Yeah. Well, this is a room, and we call it the marriage chamber. It's a very original Tudor bedroom. It's got one of the oldest fireplaces in Dorset, carved from beautiful hamstone. It shows the family emblems of the Martins and the Farringdon family, the monkey and the unicorn. But this room's always got a little bit of a chill on it, because this is the room that the Tudor wife would be put into bed as soon as they knew she was with child, and she would be cared for, because in Tudor England, 30% of mothers would die in childbirth, and an equal number of children would die before their first birthday. So childbirth was taken very, very seriously. They didn't have the the modern conveniences we have
course.
today.
Oh my goodness.
So it would all happen in here.
So it all happened in here, but would listen, I did walk in here and I felt a bit of a chill.
Yeah.
Just going to say that. But they were here from the moment that they knew that they were expecting.
From the moment, and this room has a very nice little chapel, so that the ladies who are waiting on the wife of the Lord of the Manor can go and pray, because they would need God on their side for this tremendous journey.
So instead of an ensuite bathroom,
It's
an
ensuite chapel. Now, Isabel Farringdon is a lady that I'd like to talk about. Now, she is a very important lady because she is the wife of Sir William Martin, who is the creator of the fabulous Great Hall, which is just behind this panelling.
Exactly.
And sadly, Isabel did not last very long. She lived till she was in her mid-30s, and she died in this room, probably right here where this bed is.
No.
Sadly, in childbirth.
Oh my gosh.
Either her second or third child. The records on that are a little bit dubious.
And did the child live?
The child did live and would live to inherit Athelhampton. The eldest son
my goodness.
would inherit Athelhampton. But again, sadness strikes again, because he marries a lady called Christina Cheverel. And sadly, Christina also dies in this room, most likely this room, in childbirth as well.
No.
Yeah, just a generation later.
Right, so both his mother
Yeah.
and his wife. His mother died while having him.
Yeah.
And then his wife
Absolutely,
died
while having their child.
while having their child. Oh, he must have been devastated.
I think at the time it was quite normal. Now, this room has been converted. It's still very historic, but we can use it, and we do welcome people to come and stay and have a slightly spooky night at Athelhampton. But of course, what people do report is when they're sleeping in here is that they can hear the sound of babies crying.
No.
Yes.
No, I could no.
Well, I think it does take a brave soul to come and spend the night in here.
And do you, when you have guests to stay, do you tell them this story beforehand, or do they wake up the next morning at breakfast and say, bizarrely, I heard babies crying all night?
I think it depends on the character of the guest. I don't want to put people off, and certainly when we have guests to stay, we use this as an option so that maybe they can come and spend a few hours here, and if it gets too much, they can go back to their bedroom.
Right. Ooh, yeah. I don't think I would be brave enough. Hearing babies crying, ghost babies.
Ghost babies.
Yeah, that would be it for me. I'd go find another bedroom.
Absolutely. I think that's a very good idea.
Wow. Well, but listen, we do love good ghost stories in these houses. And,
well, it's all it's all been absorbed by the panelling and the stonework over the centuries.
Yeah. Owlpen is a Tudor manor house hidden in an absolutely beautiful valley in the Cotswolds. It's been home to Sir Nicholas and Lady Amanda and their family since the 1970s. But it's said that some who have stayed or lived at Owlpen in the past still haunt the rooms.
The house has a lot of secrets because there are these so-called witches' marks and daisy wheels carved on typically around fireplaces, windows and doors, and they were said to keep, we don't really know much about it, but they were said to keep evil spirits out of your house. And the owner of the house at the time, 1616, had been educated at Oxford, educated people, but like James I, who wrote a book on demonology, they obviously were plugged into this tradition of witchcraft and folklore that is simply undocumented. We don't know what they thought or believed. But we're finding more and more in old houses they have these sort of secrets concealed in the very fabric. Marks are inscribed. Joists covered up with floorboards and this.
And do you have the markings here? Yes.
We have them upstairs, yes, and we've got shoes that have been found by fireplaces, 17th century shoes.
Old shoes, you know, they were obviously very well worn before they put them in the wall.
Yes. Before we made our way upstairs to see the markings, I asked if either Sir Nicholas or Lady Amanda believe in ghosts.
I've seen them.
Have you?
And I felt them.
What?
He doesn't believe in anything, and I just wish one day he will see or feel something.
Well, I just say I'm agnostic. I believe they're possible, but
And where have
we
you
don't
felt them?
understand.
Well, actually,
anything.
I've seen one here.
Oh,
Literally, I mean, we've got 4 ghosts in the house, and one is a little girl who was drowned in the mill pond. And I remember one day when we were doing work in the attic, the builder and I, and my cleaner came to me and said that you made such a mess in the oak parlour. And I said, well, I haven't done anything. So anyhow, so she said, well, you know, that chair is just messed up and all the cushions are all over the place. And I come in here and I see the cushion going up and down,
No.
up. Yeah, absolutely. So
This one?
yeah, that one.
no.
So I thought, which you would think was that we cleared the upstairs and probably a bird had come down, how I thought that, I don't know, and got into the chair. You know, so we took everything off the chair, and of course there was nothing there. And then she said, well, it's a little girl, isn't it? Well, it was.
It was.
We couldn't see her, but I
Right,
mean,
no,
the
no.
cushion was literally, because my grandchildren used to jump in these chairs.
Right, right.
So she obviously did exactly
Same
what they did, yeah.
So it's a little girl
Yeah.
jumping up and,
Yeah.
up and down.
Yeah. I mean, the cushion literally was
going up and
moving.
down.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And there are old stories going right back that there was an alchemist at the top of the house where he had a room was found sealed up in the 19th century, I think, and the parson was called in to burn his books and papers and so on. They thought they were somehow evil, and then it is said that blackbirds flew out of the flames as they were burning them. But the great story that is documented a long time ago also is that Queen Margaret of Anjou came here on her way to the Battle of Tewkesbury in 1471, and she spent her last happy night here because her team lost the battle. And so it's supposed to be her last happy night, and therefore
And
she keeps coming back, you know, to...
And where's that
space.
room?
And it's upstairs.
room.
Do you want-
Yeah. Okay, the ghost of Queen Margaret of Anjou? Creepy.
So come in this we call Queen Margaret's room, because it is supposed to be where, if you tread very softly, you might find her sleeping, dreaming of battles and so on. And occasionally she appears in the mirror, apparently.
Oh my goodness.
Has been
No,
known.
but that
I'm gonna
was
block that then.
No, that was many years ago when we had a guide standing by the door there, and a man come, and that mirror was over there in those days, and so this man walks in and he turns around to the guide and says, "Is there a ghost here?" And she said, "Yes, there is a ghost here." He said, "I just saw her in the mirror."
Well, Karen always talks as if it's categorically true.
Well, it is.
But
It
we
is
do
true.
know this room didn't
It is
exist in 1471, not at least in this precise form. And it's only a bit of a story that she
Yeah, but
came
my
up
father
with.
saw her.
Somebody.
Yes, I'm right here. I'm on the side
Yeah.
of Lady Mando. Absolutely. So tell me just a little bit more about the ghost story that I now believe, and how it came to be, how it's sort of evolved over the years.
Well, we know that the family were Lancastrians, and there's a letter from Edward, Prince of Wales, to the Daunt, the family were called at the time,
Right.
about the Battle of Tewkesbury, saying muster men, we're going fighting, coming from the West Country. And it may be a bit of a legend, but she definitely came this way from Bristol, where the merchants wouldn't let her in, and then the men would have camped in the fields. She would have come here, and it's supposed to be her last happy night because her son was lynched after the battle, the Prince of Wales, and her king, Henry VI, was either murdered or died very shortly afterwards. So this is where she comes back year after year, particularly on the eve of the Battle of Tewkesbury in May. And there's certainly stories, for instance, the evacuees in the war who were here sleeping in attics and in here. And then one day they asked Mrs. Bray, who had to go out to a ball or something, and didn't say goodnight to them and tuck them up as was her wont. And they said, "Who was that beautiful lady who came in last night in a fur-trimmed gown and a back veil and a wimple and all this," describing medieval costume, which they couldn't have known anything about in her sort of patronising way. So they couldn't have known what Queen Margaret of Anjou wore, sort of thing. And so she was a great raconteur and had this sort of story which was current in the neighbourhood. And again, we've got the graffiti on the fireplace.
Right.
And the hoard of shoes which were found in the house. I was telling you about how they would bury these things.
Yes. Weren't they burying them for
Good luck.
Good luck.
I think it was,
to keep evil spirits at bay. Yes.
And we don't. They always apparently they are found here and there, and they're always very worn shoes, and they're always child's shoes. That's
right.
the
And it's just one shoe, isn't it?
And it's one shoe, and the other one was found somewhere. Sometimes they're a little hoard.
Oh my.
Yeah, they were both.
So you
found
found these?
Well, they were found. I don't know when. I think in the 20s, doing the repairs.
So you mentioned when we were downstairs. You mentioned about sort of markings of the witches.
Candle burn marks just on the passage outside.
Oh.
And in this room, we've still got the graffiti on the fireplace of the children of the house.
Should we go?
But they're on a windowsill upstairs.
Oh.
So
what, the graffiti markings?
The graffiti, little daisy wheels and things.
Oh, I'd love to see that.
Which we hadn't really noticed for years and years, but now they're turning up.
Now you're seeing them.
Now that people know about them. So this room, my father used to call the monk's cell because it's a remote attic at the top of the house and people are relegated here. But I used to have a sort of office in here out of the way of everyone. And for years, I used to see these marks on the windowsill which have been inscribed as if by a school child's compasses. But they're now known to be apotropaic marks, probably to keep spirits, witches, devils out of the house, and they're finding them in country houses. People begin to recognise them now, and they're in the form of this sort of geometry. They're also marks alluding to the Virgin Mary and that kind of thing.
Isn't it all just fascinating? I mean, there is so much more to be uncovered at these historic houses. And keeping bad spirits out of the house isn't just a centuries-old tradition. So when I visited Birdsall House in North Yorkshire, Lady Cara Willoughby met me at the ruined church to tell me how she has dealt with unwelcome ghosts. All right, so what was this then?
So this is the old bell tower, I think.
Right. Oh my goodness, it's wonderful. Did they take the bell with them?
Yeah, I think they did. I think they did. Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah, and then we've got. So this is all a graveyard, so you can still see the gravestones.
Yes.
They're all in the grass.
No. So how big was this churchyard, do you think?
Who knows? I mean, it's so hard to tell. But I mean, there must be somewhere. You know, there's a gravestone over there, and when the weather gets hot, you can start seeing where they would be.
And ghosts because of this?
Yeah, I think they were. We've definitely. I actually got someone to come into the house and clear the ghosts when we moved in because I was just a bit nervy.
Did you feel it?
Yeah, I did a bit. And I just thought, you know what, this is my generation, and we're going to move on doing one thing, and then we don't need 15 generations of family joining my gang.
So can I say that you got a Ghostbuster in one sense? What do they call them? A
clearer, I think. And we just generally said, would they like to move on? Because I don't know much about ghosts, but, you know, I think their time they needed to move on. And I think you have, you know, there's energies going on around, and I just wanted to be in the best position.
Right. I hear you on that. Yeah. Wow, so they've just moved, so the ghost clearer came and just moved them on. Is that what happens when you clear them?
I
think, yeah.
It's a bit of a mystery.
But it's interesting that you felt it, did you?
Yeah, well, I just didn't want people to be asleep and suddenly feel there was someone sitting on their bed or, you know, something.
Yes,
and I just thought, you know what, I think we need to start with
Yes.
fresh cards on this one.
Yeah,
So,
I agree.
yeah.
But do you have any left in the house? Just curious, did you let any stay?
I don't know, but I think it's quite a good feeling in the house. I think it's quite calm and it's
Right.
quite positive. So I hope that if they are in the house, they're happy in the house.
Right, yeah, you know, exactly.
Do occasionally I see bum prints on the beds when I'm going up and checking the rooms, and as if someone's, you know, sat on
Sit
the
in
bed
bed.
to do their shoes up or something like that. It's like, stop sitting on my bedspreads. But that's
But that's okay.
that's part of living
It's
in
part of
an old
living
house.
in an old house that has, you know, has
History.
a history. There you go. Wow. Well, I mean, listen, they, you know, I always think of ghosts as they come and go as they please.
Yeah.
But keep the good ones.
Yeah.
I certainly believe the walls of these historic houses are filled with spirits of past generations. And there's sure to be many, many more ghost stories to tell from the wonderful houses I visit in the future. But for now, happy ghost hunting!